Nope, nothing.
Guess we're going mindfulness.
I guess so. Well, first of all, I'm going to start by, first of all, Betty, thank you for that introduction. We've developed a great relationship, Betty and I, in terms of her work with Portland Community College and raising money as head of our foundation. She talked about my vision about no one being turned away because of finances. And she really is playing a very integral role in terms of getting us there. Planning in a couple of years to have a fully funded fund drive or capital drive where we're going to realize that dream. But she's really working hard. So, Betty, thank you for your commitment to us. Sam, thank you for your hospitality. Great meal tonight. And Sam and I, we talked about the opportunity where I might be able to stay tonight because the hotel was filled, I understand, because of some students in town. And we came close to just kind of breaking the president's house and me kind of hanging out there tonight. Is that you have a key?
He's out of town.
He's out of town, so we may throw a big party a little later on. He's out of town, what do you know?
I'm leaving the dean's job, so.
And your tenure, right?
No worries.
Thank you all for coming out. I want to do a couple things here tonight. One, I want to tell you a little bit about myself, and I really want to focus, and this address is really directed toward the students in terms of the program. In terms of you taking up the interest of not only growing academically, but we're going to need real leadership in this sector of higher education in the next several years. And so I always get excited when I'm around students who are preparing for some of those leadership roles in this program. I want to also congratulate you, Sam, and the faculty. I have the great honor of working with a number of your graduates, and they're doing outstanding things for us here at PCC. As a matter of fact, raise your hand, all the PCC folks who are here tonight. Okay. Wow. Hey, great to see you. Thank you very much. I'm not going to go on a long time tonight. I know we have time limits here. I don't want to take all the time talking. I want to hear from you. I like question and answer. I love dialogue, quite honestly. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time, but I do want to share a few remarks with you in terms of I've titled it Leadership in the New Normal, or The Future Ain't What It Used to Be, and we'll talk a little bit about that. There's another reason I'm not going to go on too long tonight in terms of standing before you doing a formal presentation, because I have reached that advanced age in terms of, so I find my stamina is not, you understand what it's like, Sam. Yeah. That's what it's all about. I'm kind of like the guy who was in a little village, was sitting on a park bench, just minding his own business. An elderly gentleman, and he heard a voice, and it went like this. He says, "Hey, buddy. Buddy." He looked around, he didn't see anybody, so he just, "Hey, fella." And he looked down and he saw a frog frog just right next to him on the bench. The frog looks at him and says, "You know what? I'm really a beautiful princess. And if you kiss me, I'll transform into a beautiful princess, and we can have sex all day long." So he contemplates, he thinks a little bit, he reaches down, he takes the frog and puts the frog in his pocket. He gets up, started to walk away, and the frog says, "Hey, buddy," from his pocket, "Didn't you hear what I said? Kiss me, I'll turn into a beautiful princess, and we'll have sex all day long." The fellow said, "I'm at that age where having a talking frog in my pocket is a lot more exciting." So that's me. I'm at that age. I could wait all night for that. Let me start by reading something to you. It's titled John Henry, and probably most of you are probably familiar with this. John Henry is an American folk hero, noted for having raced against a steam-powered hammer and won, only to die in victory with the hammer in his hand. I'd like to read the following stanza from John Henry for you. John Henry said to his captain, "A man is nothing but a man. But before I let your steam drill beat me down, I'll die with a hammer in my hand. Lord, Lord, I'll die with a hammer in my hand." The man that invented the steam drill, he figured he was mighty fine and high. But John Henry sunk the steel down 14 feet, while the steel drill only made 9. Lord, Lord, the steam drill only made 9. John Henry hammered on the right side, and the steam drill kept driving on the left. John Henry beat the steam drill down, but he hammered his poor heart to death, Lord, Lord. He hammered his poor heart to death. While they carried John Henry down the tunnel, and they lay his body in the sand, now every woman riding on the C&O train says, "There lies my steel driving man, Lord, Lord. There lies my steel driving man." These passages and this I want to share with you tonight because it reminds me of my father, who was a working man, who was a man's man. And he would often say to us as we were growing up, "You know, son, when I go, I want to go with a hammer in my hand." He was a Mississippi farm worker before World War II. He went to World War II, served in North Africa, never had a formal education, always told us how jealous he was that some of his friends could go to school and learn to read and write. He moved north after the war, as many African Americans did, to escape the oppression and segregation in the South and get opportunities in the North, and really just to seek a better life. He relocated in Western Michigan, where he married my mother, Betty Hunt. Also had a little formal education. She at the time was a domestic worker. He used to get a job in a gray iron foundry. Very tough work, by the way, in those days. Dirty work, dangerous. But he was proud because he had a reasonable salary, a livable wage salary, and he had benefits and up to retirement plan. He also worked extra jobs because, as I said, he was a working man. He believed that you should have a strong work ethic, and this was all part of his responsibility. So he worked extra jobs. I remember him also leaving the foundry and go to work as a custodian or to work at a car wash. He did this because he had 6 mouths to feed. I was the oldest. Behind me came 2 brothers and 3 sisters. Our family was of modest means. In other words, we were broke, we were poor. But there was a lot of love and support and encouragement from our parents, for myself, my brothers, and my sisters. There are 4 things I remember about my dad. 1, this tremendous work ethic that I shared with you. His love for family, although he didn't display it openly a lot, but you knew he cared for us. And although he never received a formal education, he believed that education was a door to opportunity. It was America's promise. And he would tell us about this again and again and again. I remember he embarrassed me sometimes when I would be out in the corner kind of hanging with my homies, as we say, in this day and in those days, my buddies. And he had this, because he always wanted to save gas, he'd ride this strange looking English bicycle, you know, it was real small, you know, the kind with 3 speeds. And now, in a black neighborhood, that doesn't go over. That's not cool, you know what I mean? I'm on the corner hanging, and here he rides up on this beat up old bicycle, and he says, he wouldn't talk to me, he talked to the fellows with me. He says, "You leave this boy alone, he's gonna do something with his life, and you're wasting yours out here." Well, I was so embarrassed. I mean, I went home. I mean, he got me on the street. I share people that he invented something called timeout for punishment. I don't know if you've heard of this concept. Perhaps you're trained, you know, as educators. Perhaps you've heard of it. Here's the way it went with my dad. When I was young, he would spank me. When he got tired, he'd take a time out. And then he'd finish the job. That's how it works, isn't it? But he did pass on the dream to me. I remember He was getting his one suit that he had because he was a deacon at the local Baptist church, and he was getting ready to go to my high school graduation. And with tears in his eyes, this immense man, he looked at me, he said, "Look, we made it. Son, we made it." Now, me being somewhat of a smart aleck, I said, "What's this we? I did the homework. I didn't go to school. You know, what's this all about?" I missed the significance of that moment for him. But now, as I think back about it, it was very important. He died at the age of 63 of a massive heart attack after working 16 hours in the factory, a double shift. He came home and he simply had worked himself to death. My problem in high school was I was one of those invisible students. You know, the ones, they don't demonstrate much academic achievement. They're somewhere around a C, a little lower sometimes, great GPA. They're not the star athlete. They weren't in student government. I looked around, I figured, look, I wanted to make my mark in that high school. So I went out for football. Now this was a Class A high school. I had 1,000 students in my class alone. This was a big school. So imagine there were some pretty tough guys playing football. But I wanted to be part of this. I wanted something to be recognized for it. Now I had a couple of handicaps. One, I weighed about 125 pounds in those days. And my nickname in the speed drill was Turtle. I didn't have speed, I didn't have size, but I had a lot of heart. So I remember the first day of drill, the coach says, "Son, I don't think you should go out. You're going to get killed out here. These guys," I said, "Coach, let me show you my stuff. I'm going to run back upon, kick the butt, I'll show you. I'll show what I can do." So suited up and they kicked the butt off to me. And I remember I got to about the 30-yard line and everything went dark. I couldn't see a thing. I was in pain because those big guys really laid it on me. I'm laying on the ground thinking about it's time to retire. But I couldn't see anything. And I thought I'd gone blind. Not only was I in pain, I was blind. What had happened was the helmet had spun around. I was looking on the back. So after they led me off the field and into, I announced to the coach that I wanted to submit for early retirement. What I was trying to do was find my place. And in those days in Muskegon, Michigan, when you looked around for your place for a black young man, it was on the athletic field, you know, or you were performing. And those were the images I had. I was not blessed with that type of talent. I did not have a place. For a student like myself, there were few expectations. As a matter of fact, my counselor asked me why was I wasting my time. Why not just go? And because they were hiring at the Mill, they found me, why not just go to work, earn some money, buy a car. I was expected to go and work beside my dad. When I finished high school, I did not have the grades to attend. I did finish. I didn't have the grades to attend State University. But thanks to local Rotary Scholarship, which paid for 2 years at my local community college, including books, fees, and tuition, and I was very proud of that. It was given to someone with potential who had not demonstrated it in the classroom, and that was me. And thank God for that. By the way, that was $660, that scholarship returned to me. But that $660 changed my life. That and encouraged my dad that he wanted to see me go on. I ended up there. Remember, my first class was a speech class. Professor Spadaro. "All right, young man, get up and introduce yourself. You know, tell us all about yourself." Oh, I got up and I blew that assignment. I was so nervous I couldn't even hardly get the words out. But you know what happened to me, and this changed my life. He pulled me aside. He said, "You know what? You didn't do very well that assignment." I said, "No, sir." He said, "I want you to stop by my office afterwards because I think you have potential to do pretty good in this class." Why was that a traumatic moment for me? Because as the first time I can remember an educator had said to me, an official educator in the classroom, and said, "You have something to offer. You're supposed to be here." Up until that point, I really questioned that. I got encouraged by my mother, my father, but just not. And that's where the game changed for me. With his help and the help of those small classes and that community college environment, I caught on fire. I knew what I wanted to do. I wanted to come back and work there. I went on to Michigan State. I transferred there, graduated, came back, and had the great pleasure of working for 9 years as a counselor in that college, dealing with young African-American males such as myself who was struggling, trying to figure out what were we there for. And it was the best job, really. Even though I love what I do, that was the best job I ever had. That was life-changing for me. But what I did, I fell in love with community colleges from that point on. Now, at the end of the story, my 2 sisters, my 3 brothers all did the same route. And the other day we got together back home and we counted up, we have between us some 20 college degrees. We lived our father's dream. And I'm very proud of that, and I know he would have been very proud of that. But it really is about America's promise and stepping through the door of opportunity for community colleges. Take a moment and think about why that worked for me. What traits I found there, what characteristics within that place were good for me at that point in my life. Well, think about it. Open door admission, I didn't have grades to get anywhere else. Low cost, couldn't really afford much else. Mentoring, small classes, individual support and attention, and development courses if you needed it. In other words, we'll start where you're at and develop from there. All of these descriptors today are under fire because of something that I call the new normal, if you think about it in terms of what's going on. There's a wonderful African parable that sets the context for the new normal. I'd like to share that, very short. It's called Sunrise on the Savannah. On the African savannah, when the sun rises, the gazelle wakes up and must think about outrunning the fastest lion to prevent becoming a meal. Meanwhile, the lion wakes up and thinks about outrunning the slowest gazelle so she can eat. The point is, everybody must wake up running on the savannah. That sets the context of what America is going through today. It's based on a lot of fear, a lot of anxiety, but basically America, along with the rest of the world, is going in the middle of a tremendous economic transition. There's a shift of power now going on in terms of leaders in education and economic development, away from America, by the way. The current recession is quite different than the past one. It's prolonged. The power around the world is rebalancing. There's even a sense by some, I read, that the problems we face today cannot even be solved within the next decade. Make no mistake, this crisis is economic title, but it's not just a marketing thing. It's also a people thing as well. So lots of the 8 million jobs lost since 2008 are not coming back. Many of the current unemployed will not be able to return to their old jobs, and they're not trained with skills for the new 21st century jobs. Some economists are predicting that the standard of living will decline by 20% for the next decade. I met a student the other day who was trying to get in a class for a new term. Unemployed. He used his last unemployment check to get his books. This is what's going on in terms of the challenges that we face today. Many are struggling. The impact of the new normal for community colleges, we're going to have to redesign the institution, I believe, with reduced resources, with a focus on student success, with continuing increased enrollment, the expectation now that we will deliver on the workforce commitment to train the 21st century workforce, and the increase of technology in the learning process. But while redesigning the institutions, we need leadership that will allow us to continue and keep and hold on to those characteristics I talked about earlier. It was so important to me and so important to many students today, of the open door and low cost and small class, individual development and mentoring. Now, this section of my presentation is what I call the three-legged chicken section. Okay? I'll tell you the story about the three-legged chicken. There was a guy with a new Corvette driving down the country road. He was doing about 90 miles an hour. And he noticed, boy, that 600 horsepower motor was just humming. He loved it. But he noticed, he looked out to the driver's side, he noticed that there was a chicken right alongside him. 90 miles an hour, the chickens keep up with him. So he says, I want to step it up. So he moves up to 120. Chickens stay right with him. He couldn't believe it. Now he noticed the chicken was a little different. It had 3 legs. Chicken took off and left his Corvette in the dust. Ran into a little farmyard. The guy said, I gotta find out what's going on with this chicken. I've never seen anything like that. So he pulls into the farmyard with his 600 horsepower Corvette, and there's a farmer sitting on the front porch in a rocking chair. He gets out and he notices a whole farmyard full of these 3-legged chickens. So he goes up to the farm. He says, look, I paid $65,000 for this 600 horsepower car, and your chicken that ran it. It's got 3 legs. What's going on with all these 3-legged chickens? And the farmer ran back and said, well, son, he says, let me tell you the story. He says, I have 3 sons, and they all love drumsticks. And so when I kill a chicken for dinner, I want each one to have a drumstick. So I went through the OSU extension program and found out how to create 3-legged chickens. All right, I had to put that. The guy said, this is really miraculous. How do they taste? And the farmer says, we don't know, we can't catch them. So this part of the presentation is about the challenge of not becoming a 3-legged administrator, a 3-legged. I want you all to be successful. I think about whatever success I had or I have is based upon some principles. And I'd like to share those with you. I think there are some special talents and strategies that are going to be required of all of us in this new age, this new normal. And I'll share them and just make remarks and then kind of end my remarks. First of all, I think for all of us, if we're really going to be successful in these endeavors, in these leadership roles, that it will take what I call a new measure of boldness, a new commitment. We're going to have to be ready to pursue innovation, innovative strategies, and also take risk. Now, I remember my first presidency. It was at Orange County Community College, Middletown, New York, brand new president, pretty excited about the job. Had a beautiful office. I'm just admiring the office. First day on the job, I said, I'm going to have open door. I just want to meet people around the campus. I want to set a tone that I'm going to be connecting and working with staff and faculty here. I'm not going to be in an ivory tower. So the first person showed up was an elderly professor. He worked there probably about 40 years. Everybody knew him in the English department. Came in and introduced himself. He said, well, young men, congratulations. You're our new president. I've outlived about 7 of you guys. And I would like to share with you a formula for being successful in your tenure here at Orange County Community College. I said, what's that, sir? He says, don't change a damn thing. We are just fine here. Don't do anything different than what we've done now. So I closed my open door. I said, I got work to do. Look, status quo can be very popular, but I'm here to tell you, we've got to take it on in terms of innovation. It's going to be required. Now, let me tell you some strategies I use in terms of taking risk and innovation that I think certainly at least makes it easier. First of all, I have a theory that groups are smarter than individuals. If I can get groups to buy in, if I can get ground up or bottom up innovation, that's the best thing in the world. And so I'm always looking for those sparks of innovation where I can support for my role as district president. Now I'll tell you something else I discovered about success and about individuals and dynamics of this. I had become dean of students at my hometown community college. I got my doctorate, I was a counselor there, and I had the opportunity to now oversee arena registration. Remember those days? Everybody would come together, and now I was in charge. Brand new doctorate from the University of Michigan, thought I knew everything. I walked out and looked at that mess and then went back to my office and closed my door. I had no idea what to do. No idea. Got a call from the president's office. He said, Preston, I'd like to see you for a few moments. So I went down. He says, have you noticed that registration's a mess? I said, oh, really? He says, and you're in charge. He says, I'm getting complaints. People are waiting too long. They're unhappy. Now, I'm going to go, by the way, he was going to work out in a local Y. He says, but when I come back tomorrow, I want this straightened out. So, now, here's the genius in this. I knew that below the registration area in the basement was a large storage and furnace room. So, my plan was to survive the next night. So, you know how you go to the supermarket and you take a number? What I did, I set up a number system. Oh, it was gorgeous. Take a number, go to the storage room and wait. Next night, president came through, clean as a bell. One person at the counter, thanks to Muhammad, he congratulated me. He said, well done. Boy, I don't get any complaints. What he didn't know was what in that furnace room were about 100 pissed off people. Angry as they could be. Day 3, I started my morning out saying, you know, the number system's probably not going to work. And I had a registration clerk. She had worked at the place about 30 years. She was one of those folks that, she was like, had adopted the entire student body. Everybody went to her with their problems. She'd help them get in class, and she loved her work. And she came down and knocked on my door. She said, Dean Pulliams, we need to talk with you. We feel we can help you with this problem of registration. Now, here's my genius. I had enough sense to listen to her because she can be in the meeting of the lead clerks, and they sit down and they worked out the following program. They said, look, we know registration's a mess. We know people are unhappy. We know this is not working. And we want you to be successful. We want to be successful. So until we can figure out how to fix it, here's what we're going to do. We're going to employ the Disney strategy. If you ever go to Walt Disney World, you know, you wait in line and you don't realize you're waiting because there's all this distraction going on around you. We employed that theory. So we set up videos for the kids. We had food out. We had games. Now, they were waiting just as long, but they were entertained. The problem with they got through registration, they wouldn't go home. They want to play games, they want to eat, they want to get out. But it changed the whole tenor of how we were doing it. The genius there for me, and I challenge all leaders, is listen to those on the front line, because you know what? They have a lot of answers. And they're on the front line, they know what's going on. She, along with the others, helped me redesign the entire process, and it ended up to be pretty smooth. But I'm challenging all of us in terms of we lead and we manage individuals to think about that approach. Approach problems and challenges with curiosity. All right, not I know the answer, but be curious and ask questions and listen to solutions. I bet you'll find it. What about critics? Often in these positions, I don't read most of the emails that are critical of me. I have someone kind of filter those out at the college because they would depress me, I think. And I don't want to be depressed. So I will read the good stuff that they send to me. I know that's out there, I know critics out there. It comes with the territory. The job I have to have personally is don't take it personal. It's not me, it's the position. And you know what also I've discovered? Sometimes critics know what they're talking about. So you have to be able to listen. I was impressed by something I watched the other day on the internet. It's called The Last Lecture. Maybe you've heard about it. Randy Bush at Carnegie Mellon University in the fall of 2007, facing pancreatic cancer and the likelihood that he would only live a month or two, gave this lecture where he summed up his life before his colleagues and his students. He was leaving life lessons for his 1-, 2-, and 5-year-old children. He wanted something for them to relate to understand. He was giving them this guide for the future. And he has about 127 wonderful quotes about life. But he talked about working and playing together, and he said the following: when you're doing something badly and no one bothers to tell you anymore, that is a very bad place to be. Your critics are the ones that's still telling you, they love you, and they really care. Jackie Robinson did not complain when fans spit on him when he was breaking into the major leagues. He just played harder. And the latter likely made him a winner and much more effective. Sometimes you have to remember that the best gold is found at the bottom of a barrel of crab. So think about that in terms of using that and turning that energy around to make you work harder. Number 2, engagement. Get involved, do something. Please engage. Today is a requirement if we're going to really deal with a number of things. There's a passage I have to share with you. It's a story about 4 people. Everybody, somebody, anybody, and nobody. Have you ever heard that story?
Yes.
You heard it?
It's a good one.
Can I share it? What do you think? It's titled, That's Not My Job. It's a story of these 4 people. There was an important job to be done, and everybody was asked to do it. Everybody was sure that somebody would do it. Anybody could have done it, but nobody did. Somebody got angry because it was everybody's job. Everybody knew that anybody could do it, but nobody realized that somebody wouldn't do it. And it ended up that everybody blamed somebody because nobody actually asked anybody. Okay? The point is, and I know this from management, you know what? Most people won't engage, they won't get involved. They're critics. They'll understand the issue, but they'll step aside. And that's the challenge I love as a manager. How do you engage? How do you get people involved? I have a real role model now, and I love this guy, Jeffrey Canada, who is setting up Harlow's Children's Zone in New York City. Wonderful work. I went to a conference the other day and I heard him speak. I was just excited, full of energy when he got through talking about what he was doing. But he talked about America is on an unsustainable business plan. We'll never get the scale. It'll never, ever work. And it goes as follows. America is now investing, on an average, $37,000 per year per inmate to keep him incarcerated. We're spending billions on welfare. We're spending billions on fighting gang violence. These investments are unsustainable. He talks about changing the investment strategy. Just think what you could do if you could turn that around and invest $37,000 per student in K-12 education. Think about the impact that would have on our society, socially, psychologically, and economically, to deal with the prevention side instead of the punishment side, instead of after the negative outcomes. He's suggesting that we need to engage because we don't change this engagement strategy because we're not there at the table. What he's saying is that the minority rules because most Americans step back and don't engage to change, to make it better, to address these issues. I've been in the state 7 years, and we talk every year as a group at our college, at our lobby associations, when we go to Salem, about the disinvestment in higher education in this state. We complain about it, but often we don't engage in the process. This year, for the first time, I joined a group called the Oregon Idea, where we brought businesses, the universities, the community colleges, and other foundations together to advocate. Now, we may not have an impact, but at least we're doing something. And I think that's one of the challenges in management, is step up, get engaged, and get others to do so. Number 3, develop a fully functioning team. You know, I think if I sit around the table in my cabinet meeting and everybody looks like me, thinks like me, and agrees with me, I'm pretty darn ineffective, and we are as a group. Surround yourself. Colin talks about getting the right people on the bus, but you get them on the right seat also. Surround yourself with winners, people who believe in team and people who have passion. I love that. I also have them challenge me in terms of my ideas. When I throw out an idea, because I want diverse opinions. Because that's where the uniqueness comes, and that's where the best decisions are made. So surround yourself with those who think differently, who have different skills, because together you make a whole. There's a wonderful book called A Team of Rivals. It's the story of Abraham Lincoln's cabinet. If you haven't read it, read it, about how he brought this cabinet together. And boy, did they not really get along. You with him sometimes. But they were pretty darn effective in terms of saving the Union, in terms of what the decision they made and how they arrived. 4, develop a culture of adaptability. Start by connecting with people. One of the best parts of my job is I get what I call walk-around management. I love to spend time. I even love to show up and surprise people. I remember I was in a class over at Cascade, as a matter of fact, a night class, and our place is so big that people don't know me. I can get away sometimes without people knowing me, particularly part-time faculty. And this was a part-time teaching a math class. And so I just walked in class and sit down, and I sat in the back, and class begun, and she stopped in the middle of the lecture. She says, "Sir, are you supposed to be here?" I said, "Well, I'm just visiting." She said, "Well, that's not allowed. You should." I said, "Well, I just want to see." She says, "No, you're going to have to leave. And I want you to leave immediately." And some student got up and whispered in her ear, and she turned to me and says, "Do I still have my job?" So I'm thinking about it. No, she was doing the right thing. The key point was let me tell you, I take a class every term. I learned more about what's going on in the college in that classroom once the students know who I am and and they will tell you. They will tell you who the best professors are. They will tell you how slow financial aid is. They will tell you, I mean, you will get, I learned just as much, sometimes more than I do in my own cabinet meeting. Engage, connect. Now, there's another advantage of taking classes as the president of the college, is I have a 4.0 going. It's definitely based on great talent on my part, I feel. It's a true story. I was taking a photography class, and I was hurried. I couldn't get this time right, and this picture was messed up. It was out of focus. It wasn't good composition, and so. But you know, you bring your work in, and you gotta put it up on the board, and so. I went up and put my work up there, and I knew this was bad, and one of the students next to me said, "Oh, boy, that's out of focus." I said, "No, what is that?" And the teacher turned to me and says, "But what perspective?" The key is to connect, to be engaged. Don't micromanage the process. Don't know all the answers. Again, develop your team, let the innovation, because you know what I find, most people want to be successful. Most people want to be connected with a positive outcome, but you gotta get them there. There's a book, Primal Leadership, which is about the whole theme is be passionate. Great leaders move us, they ignite our passion. Be passionate about what you're doing. You know, some of the greatest opportunities for me to be passionate, by the way, for students, if you really want to, I mean, if you're looking at a presidency someday, go out and raise money, learn how to raise money. In this environment, you're going to have to be able to do that. Now, I was raised, and when I arrived, the Board of Trustees at Portland Community College says one of your #1 jobs is to get in the community, and we want you to raise money. But I had these messages floating around in my head from my upbringing by my mother and dad, who were very proud. And I remember we'd get in the car and drive down about 2 hours to her sister's house in Ethel. Now, 6 of us back to the back of the car, and when we pulled up in the driveway, my mom would say, "Okay, kids, now listen to me. Don't go in there and put your hands on the thing, and don't ask for anything. And if they offer us to eat, I don't want them to think that we're not feeding you. So don't accept and ask anything. Just be quiet and be good. We want to show we're independent." I have those messages. It was very hard from those messages I lived with to go out and now put my hand out, you know? But now I have a new presidential handshake in the community, and it goes like this. But I'll tell you how to do it. The secret is 2 things. 1, fundraising is friend raising. So the techniques you use to keep good friends, you use to get donors to support you. And the other thing is let them see your passion. Let them feel how important you're doing and why you're doing it. Now, I told you my passion is, I often tell the story about my upbringing and my dad and but I can just see people really listening, but people are waiting to be asked at some point. Now, when they see me coming, they go, okay, how much do you want?
Yeah.
Okay, you can establish that in terms of it. But show your passion, engage. And I'll tell you what, the passion will also keep you engaged, excited about what you're doing. Number 7, and this is the last one, get time out for yourself. Take care of yourself. These are tough times, and these jobs, even what you're engaged in now, takes a lot out of you. But take time and set it aside. Someone once said to me that, you know, work is infinite and time is finite. You have to be very careful in terms of how you invest your time. Collins calls it creating a pocket of quietude to take time for yourself. Joan and I have, we've been blessed with about 40 acres down in Jackson, Mississippi outside. And we go down there and retreat on the farm for at least 3 weeks, 4 weeks out of the year. And I get to bush haul, I'm a man's man, I cut down things, I even started a forest fire. When I was doing manly things. But it got me away from that everyday where things and pressures, because it will destroy you. And it will also turn your attitude into pretty negative stuff, negative energy. So learn to enjoy yourself. I learned a lesson, and my wife of 40, I always get this wrong, is it 42, 43? 42, okay. We've been married 42 years. When I first became a dean, I thought I was pretty hot stuff. I had phones ringing, I had things going on, people in my office, and I decided, you know, I'm going to give Joan the thrill of going out to dinner with her husband and I. So I made one of those calls about 2 o'clock. I said, honey, we're going to go to dinner. I'm coming back to get you. We're going to take off. We're going to take tonight off. Now, several things went on. I got busy. So when I arrived, I was about, 2 hours late. My wife was standing outside the house waiting for me. She was not pleased. I remember opening the car door, and I turned into her and said, okay, where are we going? And made reservations. Let me tell you, that evening didn't go so well. She said to me, she says, honey, you need to understand that you are not that job. That we have a relationship, and that's also very important. I will never forget that lesson. So we have date nights now. My wife has this ability to have coupons for everything. So we do a cheap movie night, usually, when we get an opportunity. The important thing is we spend time together. Hey, and I love my job, I love what I do, but also this relationship is important. What I'm saying to you, the most important part of all of this, I don't care what you accomplish, how important your job is, but if you lose that personal contact and those personal relationships, none of the rest of this is worth it. I guarantee it. I've seen it happen time and time again. As I close, I want to leave with you 2 quotes. One, from Randy again in the last lecture. He said, it's not about achieving your dream, but living your life. If you lead your life the right way, the karma will take care of itself. The dreams will come to you. Never underestimate the importance of having fun. I'm dying, and I'm having fun. I'm going to have fun every day because there's no other way to play it. Having fun for me is like fish talking about the importance of water. I don't know how. It's like what it's like not to have fun. Never lose your childlike wonder. It's just too important. It's what drives and helps others. My last quote for the night was from Gandhi, who said about leadership, at one time I thought leadership was about muscle, but I have discovered that leadership is about getting along with people. Thank you very much. Questions? Anything I said? Anything about leadership? Anything about management? Yes.
We've been discussing the differences between leadership and management extensively lately. And I was wondering your thoughts on a differentiation between those two terms.
All right, someone wants to define the difference that managers do. How's that go? Managers do the right things. No, managers do things right and leaders do the right thing. Leadership is really an elevation. Here's one part of it, and this is the part I love. Leaders bring vision. I define vision as something that doesn't exist, it's invisible, and it's my job to build it. One of my biggest responsibilities as leader of Portland Community College is to think 5, 10 years and plan strategically. I'm the only person placed with that responsibility. My board holds me accountable, but I also hold myself accountable. Now, I think I'm a good manager. I make pretty good personnel decisions. I think I hire good people. But that's elevating in my job because I go home and think, okay, where am I driving this organization? Is it in the right direction? What are we trying to do to get to where we need to go? For example, we passed a $374 million bond campaign, okay? That was a great experience. I realized that it was going to really move the college to a whole nother level. But you know, it was scary. In 2008, as the economy was dying, as the market was going bad, and even my supporters who were in my camp, until those things happened, so I questioned, is this something we need to, the numbers that the paper's not supporting this? It's my job then as leader to remind them of the vision and to take the risk. Because it's a big risk involved. This campaign cost us over $500,000. It put our reputation on the line. But see, here's what I knew as a leader. I talked about walking around engaging. I'd go to these forums in the community, and I'd be with some guy running for town council and somebody running for mayor in some of these little, around Newburgh and other areas in our service district. And the forum would always go like this. Everyone would get up as a candidate and make a speech. And here was there in 2008, no more taxes. We're not going to raise your taxes. We're going to cut taxes. And then I get to come up and says, I'm here to offer you an opportunity to raise your taxes. And support Portland Community College. But you know what? It never failed to happen that someone in that group would raise their hands, and I'd call on them. They say, you know what, folks, we should support this guy. Because I'll tell you what, they're doing the right thing at Portland Community College. And everybody here associated with community college can tell you a story such as this. This guy said, I have a son who's living in my basement. He's 25 years old with both of his girlfriends. He's not very productive. And he went to BCC and on and on and on, and now he's working and we're very proud of it. I heard that in the community. Now I leveraged in that reputation and that into then a movement to make a decision about $364 million. And because we had a lot of help and because people in this room created a great institution, we leveraged that. So you're kind of moving up in terms of priority, in terms of how you think about things, in terms of it's a big picture. And that to me is the best part of the whole job. Any other question? Yes, sir.
This has very little to do with leadership, but a lot to do with PCC.
All right.
This is the year that the first of the baby boomers reach 65 and start retiring. You're going to have a massive number of retirees from Intel and Tektronix and Nike and a lot of other really high-powered organizations. You're going to have all these people running around looking for something to do. Mm-hmm. Are you set up to give them some volunteer positions and take advantage of their?
Well, you know, there's something we call the re-retirement phenomena, that baby boomers are processed through the 60s and they're used to public service and giving back. Every day I meet someone in the community will say to me, is there something I'm retired from 30 years as an attorney or as Centronics. Is there something I can do to help volunteer? So we do have a group of volunteers through our Senior Institute program and other programs.
Massive programs to handle this influx.
Not yet. No, but we are preparing ourselves. We offer a program called Life by Design where we want to help individuals such as even design their retirement as they prepare for it. Because let me tell you a sad part. a lot of folks who enter this stage in life are not really prepared for it. And we have a number of people retire from the college, they had a great experience, and they were gone out a couple of years, and now they're back going, what can I do for myself? And we want to be able to engage that. We call it the gray tsunami in terms of those people process out, we've got to have a place for them. Oh, there's all kinds of opportunities for mentoring. We have a group that now works registration for us. They come in and they love the contact with the kids and the students. So yes, we're gearing up for that. That's going to be an important phase for all of us to realize. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
First of all, I want to thank you for your inspirational words. It definitely inspired boldness and readiness.
Right.
But you made a very critical point where you stated that we need to redesign our institutions with limited resources.
Right.
What do you envision as president of PCC? What do you think should be done? What do you consider yourself as doing in the future?
One, I think key, here's a statistic that just burns my behind whenever I hear about it or see it. This state is 47th in the country in terms of percentage of kids who graduate from high school and go to college. Do you know what? You talk about unsustainable plan? That's not going to get us anywhere to be competitive in the global economy. So one of my goals, Betty talked about when she introduced me, I want to assure anybody who has done the right thing, gotten their high school education, GED, that they have a place to go for post-secondary education. So that's one thing. What we are doing, there are two things we mentioned. I talked about the bond campaign. We're going to probably, next 3 years, build 11 or 12 new buildings, labs, and programs to expand our programs. We want to accommodate the growing population and the workforce need training. The other part of what Betty's talking about in terms of a campaign to make sure people can afford to come and attend PCC. That is my #1 priority, to be more accessible. Now there are other things. You know, this visioning thing is fun. You can, here, we have too many darn cars on the campus. I mean, we have, you know, it's awful to go and park on Defined Park now, because we grew last 2 years by 32%. I have 10,000 more FTEs than I had 2 years ago. And they all believe in driving single operated vehicles to the campus. And we're inundated by this. What we're going to do is make a massive investment in terms of sustainability. We have to deal with this issue. We've got to get people out of their single occupancy vehicles. And so we're designing. So we're trying to hold up, not build any more parking space, but redesign and engage with our students how we can get them out of their cars. Also, we're working with public transportation. Those types of things. But #1 is access to higher education. Number 2 or 3, I am really embarrassed by particularly students of color and poor families in terms of their success rate in local high schools. And so we're partnering now with local high schools. You know, and I left this out, but one of the other things is that we've got to learn in terms of engagement. We've got to learn to build partnerships. We can't afford to do this by ourselves. And so we have a wonderful partnership with Jefferson High School, that every kid enrolls in Jefferson High School, which is our largest high school of color in the state. Every kid enrolls in there also is enrolled in PCC, because our goal is to get them out of high school, college experience, and associate degree, and hopefully transfer on to a 4-year college university. But these are the types of things I'm seeing. But the major goal is access. I want to open the place up and have more people inside being trained and being educated. Any other questions? Yes?
PCC is sustainable.
Yes.
Or sustainability is one of our key signature statements. How can we incorporate that with wellness? We have talked about being a smoke-free campus, so that as a statement of promoting wellness.
Right.
We don't have a student health center on any of the campuses.
Mm-hmm.
We have a dental clinic where we have community members, and students can be a part of that.
Sure.
How can we provide a service to these incoming students around wellness? We have services to support student success.
Sure.
But as we get more and more students on our campus who have more and more needs and less financial resources, as community members without health insurance, without health services,
Right.
how can we bring healthy, sustainable and healthy into the college mission?
Let me reverse the question. How can we do that? What would you say? I want to hear this.
I would love to talk with you about that.
I'd love to.
We have a dental clinic on the Selene campus that provides dental services, and we could incorporate wellness, education and resources there, and so that proposal might be coming your way.
Let's talk about that.
That would be great.
Because I'd be very interested in using how we can leverage some dollars to support that. Very much so. So thank you. Anything else? Yes?
What would you say would be something, an issue that all of the community colleges in Oregon could work together on and really influence in the state?
I think state policy. I think we're too nice about it, and we're under-invested in, and we basically have to really get our act together and really push that as a group. You know, we have a great reputation, 17 presidents are working together, and it's wonderful, wonderful group of folks, and we have great partnerships. One with Oregon State University, one of the best universities in terms of articulations and those sorts of things. But we've got to unify ourselves and really push this agenda in terms of it. Here's my dream, that at some point we'll be organized strong enough to have a state referendum for funding for community colleges. That's my goal. That's my strategic vision. And you know who would be our best partner in the whole world? You may not believe this, would be local businesses. You know why? Because they need the workforce, and they're scared to death to stand out there. You partner with those folks at our colleges and some nonprofits and foundations. That's, I think, our next goal. Because I'm tired of every year, everybody trying to figure out how to hold things together, and we're underfunded. I'm tired of people patting me on my back saying, great job, you guys, and not investing in us from a policy standpoint. So that's the direction I'm headed. Oh, yes, sir. Oh, yeah.
I already asked the question, so let me go.
Okay, I'll go with you, yes.
Could you talk a little bit how, what are the critical elements for working with the board of directors?
Survival. The critical elements are, in some ways, seriously, and I have had great boards to work with. I've had some challenging boards to work with in my career. But you've got to remember, basically, and this is something that we call it care and feeding on the board. One, you never ignore them, but you always understand that their main responsibility is to hire and fire me, okay? And they're elected, so they represent part of democracy, they represent the community. But what you always remember is that a single board member does not have any power. They can only act as a unit. So basically, I treat them all the same. If I share information about something with one, they all will know. I don't play favorites, I don't, and some, you know, really become good friends, but I keep them at arm's length, quite honestly. But remember, one board member has no power. He or she can't tell you what to do. Sometimes they'll try, but it can't happen. It must be a group-to-group acting together. So I always work and treat them as a group and work with them. I see some presidents get into trouble because they have a favorite board member and they'll connect with that person. It's group dynamics in terms of understanding how to work with you. You all work with groups. You manage individuals. You work within a work group. Those same principles work with a board of trustees. And let me tell you, overall, most board members are there. They're not paid. They're really lay individuals. Many of them have no idea in terms of what the college, how it operates, but they really care and they promote the college. My goal is to always turn the board of directors into, they're my bosses, I never forget that, but into our best promoters and work with them in that way. But remember, one board member cannot get anything done unless he or she works with the whole group. And you remember as president, okay?
How about one more question, if there's one there?
Sure, yes.
See if I can articulate this, because I've been thinking about it for a while and you've been talking. One of the things that leaders tend to do and embrace is a position of power, whether it's personal power or positional power. But yet at the same time, I know you advocate that it is not all about you as the leader. So how do you reconcile the personal positional power of a leader with the, it's not all about you? Given the fact that this generation coming up, not necessarily talking about the cohorts that are in this room, but the cohorts that are coming up are very focused egocentrically and selfishly.
Well, first of all, this whole idea about power look, if you're getting in this to become a college president, to be all powerful, forget about it. I know when people come by my office and it's Friday afternoon, I try to get all my emails done, and it's a nice sunny day, and they'll go, well, shouldn't you be on the golf course? What are you doing here? They have no idea of how many obligations I have in terms of just span of control. I've got union contracts I have to enforce, that delegates the responsibilities a certain way. I have the governor who's always deciding, you know, what community college should do. I have the legislature, I have my board, I have county commissioners, I have, there are 1,001 obligations in terms that confines me in terms of what I can do. But if you're going in this business for power, forget about it. You know what the power I have in this job as a leader is modeling behavior. Here's what I discovered. I came here from New York, and I had a New York license plate on my car. And everybody know, by the way, if you have a designated parking space, everybody know when you're around. And everybody know when you're not around. So many people watch that, it's just amazing. And they'll tell me, you need to watch the car. You know, I always get these opinions. But they noticed the first 6 months, I still had a New York license plate on my car. Now, what they didn't know was I went to take that computer test at the DMV. That scares the heck out of me. But it beats it, you know. And so I was test anxiety. So I was going to see how long to get away driving. You know what people came and said to me? He said, are you staying with us? We're concerned. You have to change your license plate. You know what that tells me? People are watching you all the time. So I use that as a model of behavior. Right? That's the most power I have. To model the behavior that I want in the organization. To take risks. To behave ethically. For example, I sometimes, you know, those crowded places, I can't find a park when I go to meet at the other campuses, and I don't have designated parking all over. And so I'll end up with a ticket. All right? Now I have a choice. I can pay the ticket, or I can embarrass the officer. And often the officer will, when he finds out who my car, he'll come up and apologize. You know what I do? I write a check. I pay the ticket. You know why? It's the right thing to do, and everybody's watching. If I don't require ethical behavior on my part, they're not going to be in terms of what kind of behavior I'm modeling for the organization. I'm there at 6:30 in the morning most times. I leave at 10 o'clock at night, most times, if I'm not in the community somewhere. Because what I love what I do, I also want to model that I'm in this for the long haul, and I want everybody to come in it. But to tell them that, but to demonstrate it, is a whole other thing. So the power I have is informal. That's when I really have a challenge, that's what I dig in to deal with in those informal ways. So I look at power a little differently. I think there's formal power and informal. Informality, look, my dad told me once a long time ago, because he called me and I was, and he lived and seen me become, as a matter of fact, a department head. And he called me, he wanted me to drive him to St. Louis to see his sister, which was about a 8-hour trip from where I live. I said, Dad, I'm busy. He said, son, let me tell you something. President Reagan just went for, like a month vacation. I know your job's not that important. You know what he taught me? Never get overexcited about something someone can take away from you. And all it takes is 4 votes on my board at any time, and I'm done. I mean, I have contracts that say you have to pay me, I have to do this. But anytime they can call a meeting and 4 people can say your history, all right? I keep that in the back of my mind all the time. And that also governs in terms of how I exercise power, very sparingly. I'm more, in terms of facilitator, and model behavior. Thank you all very much. I appreciate it.